Welcome to Adrienne Ross Squared, squaring off from A to Z. I wasn't planning to do this video today. I was planning to do a video. I just had no idea that it would be this video. But I just saw the news. I just read the news, and that is that President Jimmy Carter died today. President from 1977 to 1981. And he's the first president I remember. There was a president before, but I was so young. I was still young even then, but Jimmy Carter was the first president I remember. And I can tell you right now, besides being president, what I first remember, what I first knew about him was probably what you knew about him, besides being president. What comes to your mind when you think about the first thing you knew about Jimmy Carter? Of course, if you're older, it might be completely different. For me, I remember he was president, and I remember Peanut Farm. That's what I knew about Jimmy Carter. And then later on, I learned a little bit more, like he was a one-term president and all of that. But at the beginning, it was like, he's our president, and, he's the peanut farmer. What's interesting to me is that I don't share his political party. I'm not a Democrat. I don't agree with some ideas and stands he took toward the end of his life. And yet when I saw that he had passed away, it was a mini gasp that came out of me, because at moments like this, it's not about being a Democrat or Republican. It's not about being a conservative or liberal. It's not about any of that stuff. We're Americans. And a president of America, of the United States of America, has passed away. And that's the way we should respond to it, no matter your political persuasion, no matter all of it. It's just, wow. He was the oldest president that we had to live to be 100 years old. And I believe he lived longer than some people thought, because it's been a few years now that he was sick. I remember the brain cancer diagnosis. I remember hearing about hospice. I remember praying for him. I remember the good report after that. And in recent times, I remember hearing about, he was coming to the end of his life. And I think that's where the hospice came in. But I think he lived longer than people thought. And again, the oldest, and his wife, First Lady Rosalind Carter, I believe she'd passed away last year, I believe. And so I just want to use this time to share a little bit about him, and also to share some comments from our current president, as well as our current president-elect. Just some information to pay honor to a president of the United States. So, again, he served from 77 to 81. He was defeated by Ronald Reagan, but he did remain active in politics and diplomatic life. And at whitehouse.gov, we see his page, his picture of him in his younger years. Actually, let me share that with you. This is the face I remember growing up. James Carter, the 39th president of the United States. And I'm not going to read all of this, but it tells us a little bit about him. He served as the 39th president of the United States from 1977 to 1981. He was awarded the 2002 Nobel Peace Prize for his work to find peaceful solutions to international conflicts, to advance democracy and human rights, and to promote economic and social development. I would be remiss probably if I didn't share this, because it just seems like something you would want to say to honor someone. Jimmy Carter aspired to make government competent. This is a quote: competent and compassionate. Competent and compassionate. I also knew that he was a Baptist. It talks about that in here. His Baptist faith was important to him. He announced his candidacy for president in 1974. And again, like I said, he was defeated by Ronald Reagan. And this lists some of his accomplishments as obtaining ratification of the Panama Canal Treaties, building upon the work of predecessors, establishing full diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China, and completing negotiation of the SALT II nuclear limitation treaty with the Soviet Union. And of course, we do know that there was some controversy surrounding him as well, seen as by many as weak on as weak. I'll leave it at that. And that includes several things. And that's where Ronald Reagan came through with peace through strength. And he also blasted Carter on the economy. So, obviously no presidency is without controversy, and people tend to speak with their votes. And thus he was a one-term president. But I also want to point out his military background, because I think that's honorable. He was educated in public school in Georgia. He's from Georgia. I didn't say that. And he received a BS degree from the United States Naval Academy in 1946. And in the Navy, he became a submariner. He served in both the Atlantic and Pacific fleets, and rising to the ranks of lieutenant. So he was assigned to Schenectady, New York for the nuclear submarine program, which is cool because I lived not too far from Schenectady, New York for much of my life. And so much more that I'm obviously not going to get into all of that. But I do want to get to what the current president and the president-elect said. President Joe Biden said the world lost an extraordinary leader, statesman, and humanitarian. He said over 6 decades, we had the honor of calling Jimmy Carter a dear friend. But what's extraordinary about Jimmy Carter is that millions of people throughout America and the world who never met him thought of him as a dear friend as well. And the current president also pointed out the compassion. He said with his compassion and moral clarity, he worked to eradicate disease, forge peace, advance civil rights and human rights, promote free and fair elections, house the homeless, and always advocate for the least among us. He saved, lifted, and changed the lives of people all across the globe. And he also went on to mention his wife, First Lady Rosalind, and that they were the definition, their love was the definition of partnership, while their leadership was the definition of patriotism. And he said that they will be missed. And the entire Carter family, he sent his gratitude for sharing their loved one with the world, their loved ones, because his wife is also included in these sentiments by the president. And the president-elect, Donald J. Trump, he wrote on Truth Social, I just heard of the news about the passing of President Jimmy Carter. Those of us who have been fortunate to have served as president understand this is a very exclusive club, and only we can relate to the enormous responsibility of leading the greatest nation in history. The challenges Jimmy faced as president came at a pivotal time for our country, and he did everything in his power to improve the lives of all Americans. For that, we all owe him a debt of gratitude. Melania and I are thinking warmly of the Carter family and their loved ones during this difficult time. We urge everyone to keep them in their hearts and prayers. And again, that was President-elect Donald Trump. So I just wanted to take a moment to just honor someone who was the president of the United States, and to point out again that no matter our differences, we are united as Americans. And when we have a leader in our country, no matter whether we agreed 100% or not, good luck finding somebody you can agree with 100%. But even if we have really strong disagreements, as we see here in many cases from many people, we honor the people who've sacrificed and have served and are a representation of our country, the greatest country God ever gave man, the greatest country on the face of the earth. And so my warm wishes, my prayers, my heartfelt sympathy are extended to the Carter family. God bless you abundantly.